The rope cut into her wrists until they bled, but Clara Brennan refused to cry. Not here. Not in front of the crowd that had already decided she was a murderer. Marshal Wade Thornton's voice echoed across the frozen square. Any man who wants a wife, step forward and claim her. No one moved. The silence stretched like a held breath. Then two small voices pierced the stillness. Papa? That's her. That's the song lady from the snow. And Samuel Hartwell's whole world shifted on its axis. Stay with me until the end of this story and comment what city you are watching from. I want to see how far this tale has traveled. The winter of 1878 had been cruel to Silver Creek, Wyoming territory. But nothing was crueler than what was happening in the town square that December morning. Clara Brennan felt the rough hemp rope biting deeper into her wrists with every small movement. Her fingers had gone numb hours ago. She had stopped counting when the crowd started gathering, when the whispers became shouts, when the first clod of frozen dirt struck her shoulder. She did not flinch, would not give them that satisfaction. Murderer. Someone spat from the crowd. Clara kept her chin high. Let them see her eyes. Let them see she was not broken yet. Three women stood tied to posts in the center of Silver Creek's town square. Old Martha Perkins, accused of stealing bread. Young Bessie Coleman, caught in the wrong man's bed. And Clara Brennan, widow of Edward Brennan, accused of bashing her husband's skull in with a fireplace poker. Clara was the only one not crying. Cold-hearted, she heard a woman mutter. Look at her. Not even sorry. Sorry. Clara wanted to laugh. Sorry for what? For surviving? For still breathing when Edward Brennan finally stopped? Marshal Wade Thornton climbed onto the makeshift platform near the posts. His boots thudded against the frozen wood. His badge caught the weak winter sun, flashing like a warning. Attention, good people of Silver Creek. The crowd pressed closer. Clara could smell them. Sweat and whiskey and self-righteousness. Now I know what you are all thinking, Thornton continued, his voice smooth as snake oil. These women committed crimes against decent folks. They deserve punishment. Hang them, someone shouted. Thornton held up his hands. That smile Clara had learned to hate spread across his face. Now, that seems wasteful, does it not? 3 able-bodied women could be useful to someone. Clara's stomach turned. She knew what was coming. He had told her 3 nights ago in that cold jail cell. Told her exactly what he planned. Any man here who needs a wife, Thornton announced, can claim one today. Right here. Right now. No courting. No waiting. No asking permission. You take responsibility for her. Keep her in line. And she is yours, the crowd erupted. Some laughed. Some cheered. A few looked away in shame. But not enough. Never enough. What about the murderess? A man called out. Who would want that one? Thornton's eyes found Clara's across the square. That cold blue gaze that had haunted her nightmares for 6 months. Mrs. Brennan here, he said, and Clara heard the possessive edge in his voice, is a special case. Killed her own husband in cold blood. Beat his head in while he slept. That is a lie. Clara's voice cut through the murmurs. Thornton's smile widened. She says it is a lie, folks, but I found her standing over the body. Blood on her hands, murder weapon right there on the floor. Clara pulled against her ropes, ignoring the fresh pain in her wrists. You know what really happened, Thornton. You know exactly what happened. Careful, Mrs. Brennan. His voice dropped, meant only for her. Do not say something you will regret. Clara held his gaze. 6 months of hell. 6 months of his visits to her cell, his demands, his threats, his hands on her face when she refused him. She would rather hang than let him win. So Thornton turned back to the crowd. Who wants to take a chance on our little murderess? Any takers? Silence. Clara watched men shuffle their feet, avoid her eyes. She was poisoned now, damaged goods. Exactly what Thornton wanted. He had told her, had he not? That night when she had spat in his face instead of thanking him for saving her from her husband. Told her he would make sure no decent man would ever want her. Told her she would beg him to take her before he was done. No one, Thornton's voice dripped false sympathy. Cannot say I blame you, gentlemen. A woman who would kill her own husband. Who knows what she would do to you, Papa? The small voice cut through the noise like a bell. Clara's head turned toward the sound, toward the edge of the crowd where a wagon had stopped, Two little girls stood in the wagon bed, maybe 5 years old, golden hair and serious faces, twins by the look of them. One clutched her father's coat sleeve, while the other pointed directly at Clara. Papa, that's her. A man climbed down from the wagon, tall, dark-haired, shoulders that spoke of hard work and a jaw set like granite. His eyes swept the square, taking in the posts, the ropes, the circus Thornton had created. Girls, sit down. This is not a place for you. Papa, no. The bolder of the twins jumped down from the wagon despite her sister's gasp. Papa, you have to listen. That is her. That is the lady from the snow. Clara felt something cold slide down her spine. The lady from the snow. She did not know what it meant, but the way the child said it with such absolute certainty made her breath catch. The man's face went pale. Grace, what are you saying? The song lady, Papa. The second twin had climbed down too. Now both girls tugged at their father's coat. She sang to us in the storm. She kept us warm. Do not you remember the green blanket? And in that frozen moment, everything changed. Clara's mind went white. A storm, a green blanket. 2 years ago, or was it 3? She had been traveling, trying to outrun the blizzard that swept down from the mountains. She had taken shelter under a tree and heard crying. Children crying. She followed the sound to an overturned wagon. A woman's body, already cold. 2 little girls, shaking, blue-lipped, calling for their mama. Clara's hands trembled against the ropes. She remembered giving them her blanket, remembered singing to keep them calm while the snow piled higher and higher, remembered the cold seeping into her bones as she lay beside them, trying to keep them warm with her own body. After that, nothing. She had woken up days later in a stranger's barn, half dead from exposure, with no memory of how she had gotten there. She had thought the children died, had dreamed about them. Nightmares where she reached for them and they turned to ice in her arms. But they were here, alive, pointing at her with small certain fingers. You sure about that? The man asked his daughters. His voice was rough. We are sure, Papa, the twins said to sure. That is her. That is the lady who saved us. Samuel Hartwell looked across the square at the woman tied to the post. She was staring at his daughters like she had seen a ghost, like they were impossible. Maybe they were. The doctor had said they had imagined the woman in the snow, a hallucination, he had called it, the mind's way of coping with trauma. But Grace and Lily had never stopped talking about her, the dark-haired lady who had found them, who had wrapped them in her green blanket, who had sung about stars and rivers until they stopped being cold. They described her face 100 times, 1,000. Sam had started to believe they had made her up, that she was just a story they told themselves to make sense of their mother's death. Now here she was, bruised and bloodied, tied to a post like an animal, but unmistakably real. Hartwell, Thornton's voice cut through Sam's thoughts. Samuel Hartwell, as I live and breathe, did not expect to see you in town today. Sam straightened, keeping his hands at his sides even though they wanted to curl into fists. He knew Wade Thornton, knew what kind of man wore that badge. Just came for supplies, Sam said evenly. Well, you are in luck. Thornton gestured toward the 3 women. We are having ourselves a little auction today. Any of these ladies catch your fancy? They are not cattle, Thornton. No? The marshal's eyebrows rose mockingly. What would you call them then? Criminals, sinners, burdens on decent society? Sam felt his daughters press closer to his legs. Grace was crying silently. Lily's jaw was set in that stubborn way that reminded him painfully of Rebecca. Papa, Lily whispered urgently, you have to help her. She saved us. You cannot let them hurt her. Shh, baby girl. But Papa, I said shh. Sam's mind was racing. This was madness. The woman was accused of murder. He did not know her, did not know anything about her except what 2 5-year-olds believed they remembered from the worst night of their lives. But those 2 5-year-olds had never lied to him, not once, and they were looking at him now with those huge blue eyes, asking him to be the father who fixed things, who made the bad stuff go away. What is her crime? Sam asked, nodding toward Clara. Thornton's smile flickered. Murder. Killed her husband. Did she have a trial? The silence stretched. Sam watched Thornton's jaw tighten. Trials are expensive, the marshal finally said. Territorial judge will not be through for months. Evidence was clear enough. Clear to who? To me. Thornton stepped to the edge of the platform. His voice dropped. You questioning my judgment, Hartwell? Just asking questions, Marshal. Is that not what a man is supposed to do before he makes a decision? Decision about what? Sam looked at his daughters. Grace had stopped crying, but her hand was clutching his coat so tight her knuckles were white. Lily was staring at the woman on the post with fierce, protective eyes. The woman. Clara. Thornton had called her. She was staring back at his girls, and Sam saw something in her face that made up his mind. Recognition, wonder, and tears. Actual tears sliding down cheeks that had stayed dry through all the insults and thrown dirt. I will take her, Sam heard himself say. The square went silent. Thornton laughed. I am sorry. What? I said I will take her. Sam stepped forward, putting himself between his daughters and the marshal's mockery. The Brennan woman. I will take responsibility for her. You cannot be serious. Thornton's smile had turned brittle. She killed her husband, Hartwell. Bashed his head in while he slept. You want that kind of woman around those precious little girls of yours? My girls seem to think she saved their lives once. Sam met Thornton's eyes steadily. I reckon I trust their judgment more than yours. Your girls are children. They do not know. They know enough. The crowd was muttering now, a low buzz of shock and speculation. Sam ignored it. He had been the subject of town gossip before. The widower who could not keep his wife alive, who raised his daughters alone, who kept to himself and his horses. He was used to being talked about. Think carefully, Thornton said, and there was an edge to his voice now, a warning. You take this woman home. You are taking responsibility for whatever she does. If she hurts those girls, it is on your head. Understood. If she runs, you will be held accountable. She will not run, Sam said. Will she, Mrs. Brennan? Clara's voice came out rough, like she had forgotten how to use it. Where would I go? Sam almost smiled at that. Almost. Cut her loose, he said. Thornton did not move. For a long moment, the two men stared at each other across the frozen square. You are making a mistake, Hartwell, Thornton finally said. Maybe so. Sam stepped closer to the platform. But it is my mistake to make. Now cut her loose. The knife bit through the ropes, and Clara stumbled forward. Sam caught her arm, steadying her. Up close, he could see the full extent of the damage. Bruises on her face, yellow and purple. A split lip barely healed. Rope burns on her wrists that were bleeding freely now. Someone had hurt this woman. Hurt her badly. And recently. I'm going to cut the ropes now, Sam had said quietly. Can you stand? Clara's eyes had searched his face. Why are you doing this? My daughters say you saved them. I do not remember, not all of it. There was a storm and children crying, and then... She shook her head, wincing at the movement. I woke up days later in a barn. I thought they had died. I thought I had imagined it all. You did not imagine it. Sam began sawing through the ropes. They remember you. Been talking about the song lady for 2 years. I thought they had made you up. The ropes fell away and Clara stumbled forward. Sam caught her arm, steadying her, feeling how thin she was through the torn sleeve of her dress, how badly she was shaking. Easy, he murmured. I have got you. The song lady. Lily's voice rang out, and then both girls were there, wrapping their small arms around Clara's waist, nearly knocking her off her feet. We knew you were real, Grace whispered. We knew it. Mama's in heaven, but you are here. You came back. Clara's face crumpled. She sank to her knees in the frozen dirt, gathering the twins close, her body shaking with sob. She had clearly been holding back for far too long. I am sorry, she gasped. I am so sorry. I did not know. I could not remember. I thought you died. We did not die, Lily said firmly, patting Clara's back like she was the adult comforting a child. You saved us. The blanket kept us warm, and you sang until help came. The green blanket, Clara whispered. My grandmother made it. It was so soft. Grace agreed, but then it was gone. And you were gone. And Papa found us, and Mama was in heaven, and we looked for you everywhere. Sam watched his daughters comfort the woman he had just claimed from a public auction. Watched the crowd begin to disperse, muttering and staring. Watched Thornton's face twist with something ugly before the marshal turned and stalked away. This was either the best decision he had ever made or the worst. "Can you walk?" Sam asked, offering Clara his hand. She looked up at him, her dark eyes wet with tears but burning with something else too. Gratitude maybe, or determination. "I can try, then let us go home." He helped her to her feet, shrugged off his coat, and draped it over her shivering shoulders. The twins each took one of her hands, leading her toward the wagon like they had done it 1,000 times before. "Wait," Clara said suddenly, turning back toward the other two posts. Old Martha was being cut down by a young farmer. But Bessie Coleman stood alone, still crying, still bound. "We cannot just leave her," Clara said. Sam hesitated. One accused murderer was already more than he had bargained for. "Please," Clara whispered. "I know what it feels like." Standing there, waiting. "Please." Sam looked at the sobbing young woman, then at Clara's bruised face, then at his daughters watching him with expectant eyes. "Hell," he muttered. 10 minutes later, he had two women in his wagon instead of one. Bessie Coleman sobbed with relief the entire ride out of town, clutching the hand of a rancher named Tom Miller, who had stepped forward after Sam's example. A quiet, decent man whose wife had died the previous spring. They separated at the fork in the road, Miller tipping his hat to Sam with something like gratitude in his eyes. "You started something today, Hartwell. Did not mean to start anything. Does not matter what you meant." Miller glanced back at Bessie, who was still crying. "Matters what you did." Then they were gone, and Sam was alone with his daughters and a woman accused of murder. The ride to the ranch took an hour. The girls chattered the whole way, asking Clara questions faster than she could answer them. What was her favorite color? Did she like horses? Could she braid hair? Did she remember the song about stars? Clara answered as best she could, her voice growing hoarse, her body swaying with exhaustion. Halfway home, she fell silent. Sam looked over to find her unconscious, her head resting against his shoulder. She weighed nothing, felt like a bird that might break if he held too tight. "Is she okay, Papa?" Grace whispered from the wagon bed. "Just tired, sweetheart. She has been through a lot." "The bad man hurt her," Lily said with quiet certainty. "The one with the shiny star." "I could tell." Sam's jaw tightened. "How could you tell?" She looked at him the same way Mama used to look at thunder. Like she wanted to be brave, but she was really scared inside. Out of the mouths of babes, Sam thought. "She is safe now," he said firmly. "Nobody is going to hurt her anymore. Promise, Otostame?" "Promise." Sam looked down at the woman sleeping against his shoulder, at her bruised face and bleeding wrists, at the stubborn set of her jaw even in sleep. "Promise." The ranch appeared as the sun touched the western mountains, casting everything in shades of gold and pink. Sam's two-story house stood solid against the winter sky, smoke curling from the chimney where he had banked the fire before leaving. Home, safety, peace. He hoped Clara Brennan would find all three. She woke as he lifted her down from the wagon, her eyes flying open with panic before settling on his face. "Where, home," Sam said. "You are safe here." Clara looked around at the ranch, at the house, at the horses watching curiously from their paddocks, at the twins already running ahead to open the front door. "Why?" she whispered, and Sam heard all the broken questions underneath. "Why did you save me? Why do you believe me? Why would anyone be kind after everything?" "Because my daughters say you saved their lives." Sam answered, "And I figure that makes you family. Come on, let us get you inside before you freeze." He offered his arm, and after a moment's hesitation, Clara took it. Her fingers were like ice through his shirt sleeve. They walked toward the house together, toward the warm light spilling from the windows, toward the sound of his daughters laughing as they argued about who got to show Clara her room first. Behind them, the sun set over Silver Creek, and somewhere in town, Marshal Wade Thornton was already planning his next move. But that was tomorrow's problem. Tonight, Samuel Hartwell was bringing a stranger home. A stranger his daughters claimed had saved them from death in a blizzard 2 years ago. A stranger accused of murder by a man Sam trusted about as far as he could throw him. Tonight he was betting everything, his reputation, his safety, maybe his life, on the memory of two 5-year-old girls and the feeling in his gut that said this woman was worth saving. He just hoped to God he was right. The house smelled like dust and cold coffee and something faintly sweet. Lavender, maybe. Dried and forgotten. Clara stood in the doorway, afraid to step further. Afraid that moving would shatter whatever strange dream had brought her here. She had spent 6 months in a cell smaller than this entryway. 6 months staring at stone walls, listening to Thornton's boots on the stairs, waiting for the rope that would end it all. And now she was here, in a stranger's home, with two little girls tugging at her hands like she belonged. "You can come in," Sam said from behind her. "I am not going to bite." Clara's legs would not obey. "Come on," Lily urged. "I will show you your room. It has got a window and everything. Best window in the house," Grace added seriously. "You can see the mountains." Clara looked at Sam, searching his face for the catch, the trap, the moment when kindness would curdle into something else. He just nodded toward the stairs. "Go on. Girls will get you settled. I will bring up some water for washing." She let the twins lead her upstairs, their small hands warm in hers. The room they brought her to was simple: a bed with a faded quilt, a washstand with a chipped basin, a chair by the window. But it was clean, private, safe. The door had a lock on the inside. Clara stared at that lock for a long moment, her throat tight. "Mama put that there," Grace said quietly, following her gaze. "She said every woman needs a door she can close. Your mama sounds like she was smart. She was the smartest." Lily climbed onto the bed, bouncing slightly. "She died in the snow. Same night you found us. Did you see her?" The question hit Clara like a physical blow. Yes, I saw her. Was she cold?" Clara knelt down, bringing herself to Lily's eye level. She was not hurting anymore. "That is what I remember." She looked peaceful. Lily nodded, processing this with the terrible practicality of children who have learned too young about death. "Papa says she is watching us from heaven. Do you think she saw you save us?" "I think," Clara said carefully, "if she was watching, she was glad someone found you. She sent you." Grace spoke with absolute certainty. "Mama sent you to save us. And now you are here because we still need you." Clara opened her mouth to argue, to explain that she had just been traveling, just stumbled across them by accident, that there was nothing divine about nearly freezing to death in a blizzard. But the words would not come. Maybe it did not matter why she had been there. Maybe it only mattered that she had been. "I need to ask you something," Clara said quietly. "Both of you." The twins leaned in, serious and attentive. "That night in the storm, what exactly do you remember?" Grace and Lily exchanged one of those looks that twins share, an entire conversation passing between them in seconds. The wagon fell over. Grace began. "It was so cold. Mama told us to stay under the blankets, but the blankets were not enough. She went to sleep." Lily continued. "We tried to wake her up, but she would not wake up. We were crying and crying. And then you came out of the snow," Grace whispered. "Like a ghost, but warm. You wrapped us up in your blanket. The green one. It smelled like flowers." "Lavender," Clara breathed. Her grandmother's blanket had always smelled like lavender. "You sang to us," Lily's voice dropped. "You said help was coming. You said we just had to hold on a little longer. And then you lay down next to us, and you were shaking so bad. We tried to keep you warm too, but you were so cold." "We fell asleep," Grace said. "And when we woke up, Papa was there with the other men. They were digging us out of the snow, but you were gone. We looked for you everywhere." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Papa said maybe we dreamed you, but we did not dream you. We did not." Clara pulled both girls into her arms, holding them tight against her chest. "You did not dream me. I was there. I got lost in the storm. I could not remember what happened after I fell asleep. But you remember now. I'm starting to." Sam appeared in the doorway with a pitcher of steaming water. He paused at the sight of Clara on the floor with his daughters wrapped around her. Something shifting in his expression. "Water for washing," he said gruffly. Setting the pitcher on the washstand. "There is soap in the drawer, clean clothes in the wardrobe. They were Rebecca's, my wife's. Should fit you well enough. I cannot take your wife's clothes. She would have wanted you to have them." Sam's voice roughened. "She would have done what you did that night in the storm. She would have given her blanket to someone else's children. So wearing her clothes? That is fitting. That is right." He left before Clara could respond. The twins helped her wash, small hands carefully dabbing at her bruised face while she scrubbed 6 months of prison grime from her skin. The water turned gray, then brown, then gray again as they refilled the basin. "Does it hurt?" Grace asked, touching the yellow bruise on Clara's jaw with gentle fingers. "Not anymore. The bad man did this." Clara hesitated. These were children. They should not know about men like Thornton. But they had already lost their mother. They had already seen more darkness than most children twice their age. Lying to them felt wrong. "Yes," Clara said simply, "the bad man did this. Papa will not let him hurt you again." Lily's voice was fierce. "Papa is strong. He fought in the war. He is not scared of anybody." Clara thought about the way Sam had faced down Thornton in the square. The steel in his voice, the way he had planted himself between her and danger without hesitation. Maybe Lily was right. Maybe this man really was not scared of anything. Or maybe he was scared of the same things everyone else was. Losing people, being alone, watching the world take everything good and grind it to dust. And he had just learned to stand up anyway. That kind of courage was rarer than fearlessness, and far more valuable. Dinner that night was awkward. Clara sat at the table in Rebecca's dress, her wet hair drying by the fire while Sam served up a meal of beans and bread and some kind of meat she did not ask about. The twins chattered enough to fill the silence, but Clara felt Sam's eyes on her throughout the meal, watching, assessing, trying to figure out what kind of woman he had brought into his home. "You should eat more," he said finally. "You are too thin. Prison food is not known for its generosity." "How long were you in there? 6 months?" Sam's jaw tightened. "And before that, how long were you married to Brennan?" Clara set down her fork. 4 years. Was it bad from the start? Does it matter? I am trying to understand who I am dealing with. Clara met his eyes across the table. "You are dealing with a woman who was beaten by her husband for 3 years, who finally fought back the night he tried to kill her, who watched the local marshals shoot him in the back and then claimed she was the murderer when she refused to become his property instead." The words fell into silence. Sam's expression did not change, but something flickered behind his eyes. "Thornton shot your husband?" "Yes." "And framed you for it?" "Yes." "Why?" Clara's laugh was bitter. "Because I said no. Because I would not let him touch me. Because I would rather hang than spread my legs for the man who murdered my husband and called it justice." "Clara," Sam's voice was sharp, and Clara realized the twins were staring at her with wide eyes. "I am sorry." She pressed her hands to her face. "I am sorry. I should not have. They are children. I know they are children. I just—" "Girls, go upstairs." Sam's tone left no room for argument. "But Papa—" Now the twins slid off their chairs and trudged toward the stairs, casting worried glances back at Clara as they went. When they were gone, Sam leaned forward, his elbows on the table. "Tell me everything, from the beginning." So Clara told him. She told him about meeting Edward Brennan in Missouri, about his charm and his promises, the way he had made her feel special when she was just a poor Irish girl with nothing to her name. She told him about the wedding, the move to Colorado, the slow revelation that the man she had married was not the man she thought she had known. She told him about the drinking, the rages, the first time Edward hit her and apologized after, crying and swearing it would never happen again, the second time, the third, the 100th. She told him about losing a baby, their baby, when Edward threw her against a wall in a drunken fury, about lying in bed for days afterward, bleeding and broken, while her husband drank himself into oblivion and blamed her for losing his heir. She told him about the night everything ended, Edward coming home drunk, angrier than she had ever seen him, his hands around her throat, the fireplace poker she had grabbed in desperation, the shot that came from the doorway, and Thornton, standing there with a smoking gun and a smile that made her blood run cold. "He told me I owed him," Clara said, her voice hollow. "Said he had saved my life, and I should be grateful. When I refused to be grateful in the way he wanted, he arrested me, told everyone I had killed Edward in his sleep, made sure the whole territory believed I was a monster." Sam was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "He came to your cell, Thornton, every day. He tried." Clara's hands clenched in her lap. "I fought. bit him once hard enough to draw blood. After that, he got creative with his punishments. Nothing that would show, nothing that would leave marks people could see. Sam stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. He walked to the window and stood with his back to her, his shoulders rigid. I should have killed him in the square. Would have been easy. He was too busy talking to watch his back. And then you would be in prison and your daughters would be orphans. Clara rose and moved to stand beside him. You did the right thing, the smart thing. Do not second guess it now. Sam turned to face her. In the dim light of the parlor, his gray eyes were unreadable. Why did you not tell them? In the square. Why did you not tell everyone what he did? Would they have believed me? He did not answer. They both knew the truth. I stopped trying to defend him months ago, Clara continued. Nobody wanted to hear it. They had already decided what I was. A murderess, a mad woman, a woman who killed her husband and blamed it on the marshal. I believe you. 3 words. Simple and direct and devastating. Clara felt her eyes sting. Why? Because my daughters do not lie. And because I have known Wade Thornton for 3 years. Watched him bend the law to suit himself. Watched him hurt people who could not fight back. Your story makes sense. His never did. That is not enough. I could be lying. I could be exactly what they say I am. Could be. Sam reached out and tucked a strand of damp hair behind her ear. His touch was gentle, careful, like she was something fragile. But I do not think so. Clara caught his wrist before she could stop herself. Do not. Please do not be kind to me. I cannot. Cannot what? I cannot trust it. Her voice broke. Every time someone has been kind to me, it has turned out to be a trap. Edward was kind at first. Thornton was kind when he shot my husband. I am not them. How do I know that? Sam did not pull away from her grip. You do not. Not yet. But I am going to show you. Every day. I am going to show you that some people are exactly what they seem. And you are going to learn to trust again. Might take a while. That is okay. We have got time. Clara stared at him, searching for the lie, the manipulation, the hidden agenda. She found nothing but steady gray eyes and a patience that seemed to run bone deep. You are either the best man I have ever met, she whispered, or the best liar. Guess you will have to stick around to find out. Against all reason, against every instinct screaming at her to run, Clara smiled. Just a small thing, barely a curve of her lips. But Sam's eyes lit up like she had given him a gift. There it is, he said softly. Been wondering if you still knew how to do that. The moment stretched between them. Fragile and new, then small footsteps thundered on the stairs. And Lily burst into the room, her face white with panic. Papa, Grace is having the dream again. They ran. Sam took the stairs 2 at a time with Clara right behind him. Grace was sitting up in bed, screaming, her eyes wide open but seeing nothing. Mama, wake up. You have to wake up. It is so cold. Mama, please. Sam reached for her, but Clara got there first, gathering the thrashing child into her arms. Grace, listen to me. Listen to my voice. Mama, it is Clara. Remember? The song lady. You are safe now, sweetheart. You are warm and you are home and you are safe. Grace's screams dissolved into sobs. Her small hands fisted in Clara's dress, clutching tight. She would not wake up. We tried and tried, but she would not wake up. And then you came and you were shaking and we could not keep you warm. And I thought you were going to sleep too and never wake up like Mama. Shh, Clara rocked her gently, tears streaming down her own face. I am here. I woke up. I am not going anywhere. Promise? Promise. Lily climbed onto the bed and pressed against Clara's side. Sam stood frozen in the doorway, watching this woman he had known for less than a day hold his daughters like they were her own. She has these dreams sometimes, Lily whispered. About the snow, I try to wake her up, but she does not hear me. Does singing help? Clara asked. Both girls nodded. Clara began to sing. It was an old melody, passed down from her grandmother, about stars and rivers and finding your way home. Her voice was rough from disuse, cracking on the higher notes. But Grace's sobs slowly quieted, and Lily's eyes grew heavy. Sam listened from the doorway, feeling something crack open in his chest. For 2 years, he had tried everything to help his daughters through these nightmares. Warm milk, stories, prayers. Nothing had worked, but Clara's voice seemed to reach them in a way his never could. Like they remembered it from that night in the snow, like it was coded into their very bones. Grace fell asleep first, her breathing evening out as she slumped against Clara's chest. Lily followed minutes later, curled into Clara's side like a puppy seeking warmth. Clara kept singing until she was sure they were both deeply asleep. Then she looked up at Sam with exhausted, tear-bright eyes. "Help me lay them down." Together they arranged the sleeping girls in their beds, tucking blankets around small shoulders, brushing golden hair from peaceful faces. 2 years, Sam said quietly as they stood in the hallway. 2 years of nightmares. Doctors said they would grow out of it. They never did. Trauma does not work like that. It stays until you face it. Is that why you are still here? Facing your trauma? Clara considered the question. I am here because two little girls recognized me in a town square. I am here because their father decided I was worth saving. Beyond that, I do not know why I am anywhere anymore. Then stay. Sam's voice was simple. Matter of fact, stay until you figure it out. And what do you get out of this arrangement? My daughters sleep through the night for the first time in 2 years. Sam's eyes held hers. Seems like a pretty good deal to me. Clara wanted to argue, wanted to point out all the reasons this was madness, all the ways it could go wrong, but exhaustion was pulling at her, and the bed in that guest room was calling. And for the first time in 6 months, she felt something dangerously close to hope. One day at a time, she said finally. One day at a time, Sam agreed. He walked her to her room. At the door, he paused. Lock it if you need to. I will not take offense. Clara touched the lock on the inside of the door. Your wife put this here. She had a past too. Before me. Took her a long time to trust that a closed door would stay closed. That nobody would bust through demanding things she did not want to give. Did she trust eventually? Yeah. Sam's smile was sad. She did. Took 3 years, but she got there. And you waited? For 3 years? Some things are worth waiting for. He left her then, his footsteps retreating down the hallway toward his own room. Clara stood in the doorway for a long moment, listening to the house settle around her. Then she stepped inside, closed the door, and for the first time since she had married Edward Brennan, she did not turn the lock. The next few days passed in a strange haze. Clara slept more than she had slept in years, her body finally surrendering to exhaustion now that safety had made it possible. She ate 3 meals a day, feeling her strength slowly return, watching the bruises fade from her face in the small mirror above the washstand. The twins were her constant shadows. They followed her everywhere, asking endless questions, demanding stories and songs and help with their braids. They taught her the names of all the horses, showed her the secret places on the ranch where they played, introduced her to the barn cat and her new kittens. And slowly, so slowly, Clara almost did not notice it happening. She began to feel human again. Sam kept his distance during the days, working with the horses, mending fences, doing the 1,000 small tasks that kept a ranch running. But in the evenings, after the girls were in bed, he would sit with Clara in the parlor, and they would talk. He told her about the war, about the things he had seen and done, the friends he had lost, the nightmares that still caught him sometimes in the quiet hours before dawn. She told him about growing up Irish in Boston, about her mother's death and her father's drinking, about her brother Declan, who had practically raised her after their father fell apart. Where is he now? Sam asked one night. Your brother? I do not know. We had a fight before I married Edward. Declan saw what Edward was. Tried to warn me. I did not listen. Clara stared into the fire. I told him if he could not be happy for me, I did not want him around. So he left. You ever try to find him? With what? I was Edward's property, could not write a letter without him reading it first. Could not leave the house without permission. And after, she shook her head, after everything I assumed Declan would not want to hear from me anyway. I had made my choice. I had to live with it. Family is supposed to be there no matter what. Supposed to be. Rarely is. Sam was quiet for a moment. Then, I have got a sister in Denver. Have not seen her in 4 years. Life just got in the way. That is different. Is it? She wrote me after Rebecca died, asked if I needed help with the girls. I said no. Too proud, too stubborn, too sure I could handle everything myself. He laughed softly. Sound familiar? Clara looked at him sideways. Are you trying to tell me something? I am trying to tell you that people make mistakes, push away the ones who love them. Does not mean those people stop loving them. Your brother might still be out there, waiting to hear from you, or he might have forgotten I exist. Only one way to find out. Before Clara could respond, hoofbeats sounded outside. Sam was on his feet immediately, hand dropping to the gun he wore at his hip. Stay here, he said. Keep the girls inside. No matter what happens, stay in this house. Sam, stay here. He was out the door before Clara could argue. She moved to the window, heart pounding, and watched him stride toward the rider approaching through the darkness. The rider pulled up short, hands raised where Sam could see them. Evening, Hartwell. Clara's blood went cold. She knew that voice. Deputy Jennings, Sam said flatly. Long way from town this time of night. Marshall sent me. Got a message for you. I can imagine what kind of message Thornton sends. He wants the woman back. Jennings shifted in his saddle. Says you took her under false pretenses. Says she is a dangerous criminal who needs to be in custody. She is under my custody now. Thornton made that deal himself. In front of the whole town. Marshall says he made a mistake. Says he should not have let a murderer go free, even to a respectable man like yourself. Clara watched Sam's hand tighten on his gun. Tell Thornton she stays here. She is not going anywhere. He will not like that answer. Do not much care what he likes. Jennings was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned forward in his saddle. Look, Hartwell, I am just the messenger. But between you and me, the marshal has got it bad for this woman. Been talking about her for months. I do not know what happened between them, but whatever it was, he is not going to let it go. Then he will have to come through me. That is what I was afraid you would say. Jennings wheeled his horse around. I will tell him. Do not expect he will take it well. Jennings, Sam's voice stopped the deputy mid-turn. You are a decent man, better than Thornton deserves. If things get ugly, you do not have to stand with him. The deputy was silent for a long moment. Then, good night, Hartwell. Watch your back. He rode off into the darkness. Sam stood motionless until the hoofbeats faded. Then he walked back to the house, his face grim. Clara met him at the door. He is not going to stop, is he? No, he is not. I should go. Take one of your horses and just go. If I am not here, if you are not here, he will hunt you down. At least here you have got walls and guns and someone willing to use them. I cannot ask you to fight my battles. Sam stopped in front of her, close enough that she could see the firelight reflected in his eyes. You did not ask, I volunteered. He touched her face, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. Told you I would show you some people are exactly what they seem. This is me showing you. Clara's throat tightened. Why, you barely know me. Know enough, his voice dropped. Know my daughters smile more in 3 days than they have in 2 years. Know this house feels alive again. Know that every time I look at you, I see someone worth fighting for. Sam, you do not have to say anything. Do not have to feel anything. I am just telling you how it is. He dropped his hand. Now get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be a long day. He walked past her toward the stairs, and Clara stood frozen in the parlor, her heart racing. 3 days ago, she had been tied to a post, waiting to die. Now she was standing in a warm house, protected by a man who looked at her like she mattered. Loved by 2 little girls who had somehow remembered her across the gulf of years in trauma. It felt like a dream, a beautiful, impossible dream. And Clara was terrified to wake up. 3 weeks passed, and Clara began to believe in miracles, not the kind from church stories, burning bushes and parting seas. The quiet kind, the kind where a woman who had forgotten how to laugh found herself giggling at Lily's terrible jokes, where nightmares that had haunted her for years started fading like old bruises, where she caught Sam watching her across the dinner table with something soft in his eyes and did not feel afraid. You are humming, Grace observed one morning, looking up from her porridge with wide eyes. Clara stopped, her hands frozen over the bread dough she was kneading. Was I? The star song. You were humming the star song. I did not realize. Mama used to hum when she was happy. Lily said matter-of-factly. Does that mean you are happy now? Clara looked at these two golden-haired girls who had somehow become the center of her world, at the kitchen full of morning light, at the life she had stumbled into through snow and tragedy in the stubborn faith of children. "Yes," she said softly, "I think I am." Sam appeared in the doorway, stamping snow off his boots. "Storm is coming. Big one by the look of the sky. I'm going to bring the horses in closer. Make sure we are stocked up on firewood. Need help? You are doing fine right there." His eyes lingered on her flour-dusted hands, on the color in her cheeks. "Making bread looks good on you." Clara felt heat rise to her face. "Go tend your horses, Samuel Hartwell." He grinned, actually grinned, transforming his stern face into something almost boyish, and ducked back outside. "Papa likes you," Grace announced. "He is just being kind." "No, he likes you, likes you." Lily made a face. "He looks at you all moony." "Like Mr. Henderson looks at Mrs. Henderson at church. The Hendersons have been married 30 years. "So?" Lily shrugged. "Papa could marry you. Then you would be our real mama, and you would never have to leave." Clara's hands stilled on the dough. "Sweetheart, it is not that simple." "Why not?" "Because I am broken," Clara wanted to say. "Because I do not know how to trust anymore. Because every time I think about forever, I remember Edward's fists and Thornton's smile and all the ways love can turn into a cage. Because your papa deserves someone who is not afraid of her own shadow," Clara said instead. "Someone who can give him a whole heart, not the broken pieces of one." Grace slid off her chair and walked over to Clara, her small face serious. "Our hearts were broken too, after Mama died. But you are fixing them. Maybe Papa can fix yours." Clara's eyes stung. She pulled Grace into a flowery hug, breathing in the scent of childhood and innocence. "When did you get so wise?" "Lily says I was born that way." Lily is right. The storm hit that afternoon, howling down from the mountains with a fury that made Clara's bones ache. Wind screamed around the corners of the house. Snow piled against the windows so fast they could not see out. "Just like that night," Lily whispered, pressing close to Clara on the sofa. "Just like when we found Mama." "You are safe now," Clara wrapped an arm around her. "You are warm and dry and nothing bad is going to happen." But even as she said it, she noticed Grace had not come down from her afternoon nap. Usually Lily could not keep her sister in bed past 3. "Grace?" Clara called up the stairs. "Sweetheart, time to wake up." No answer. Clara's stomach tightened. She climbed the stairs, Lily on her heels, and pushed open the door to the girls' room. Grace lay in bed, her face flushed red, her body shaking despite the pile of blankets. "Grace." Clara pressed her hand to the child's forehead and pulled back with a gasp. "She is burning up, Mama." Grace's eyes opened, glassy and unfocused. "Mama, I am cold. Why is it so cold?" Clara's blood turned to ice. "Lily, go get your father, now." Lily flew down the stairs. Clara could hear her screaming across the yard, her voice nearly lost in the wind. "It is okay, sweetheart." Clara gathered Grace into her arms, rocking her gently. "It is Clara. I am right here. The snow," Grace mumbled. "There is so much snow. Mama will not wake up." Why will not Mama wake up? She was delirious. The fever had pulled her back to that night 2 years ago, trapped her in the memory. "Your mama is in heaven, remember? She is watching over you. She is always watching over you." The lady came. Grace's eyes rolled. "The lady with the green blanket. She sang to us. She kept us warm." Clara felt tears sliding down her face. "That is right, baby. And I am still here. I am not going anywhere." Sam burst through the door, snow crusting his hair and shoulders. Panic written across his face. What happened? Fever, high one. It came on fast. He touched Grace's forehead and swore under his breath. "We need to bring it down." "Cold water. Rags. I will get them." They worked through the evening, bathing Grace's burning skin, forcing sips of water between her cracked lips. The storm raged outside, cutting them off from any hope of fetching a doctor. "Mama." Grace kept crying. "Mama, please wake up. Please do not sleep anymore." And then Lily started swaying. Clara saw it first. The way the little girl grabbed the bedpost, her face going pale. "Sam." He turned just in time to catch his daughter as she collapsed. "No," his voice cracked. "No, not both of them. Get her on the bed. We need more water. More rags. Clara, I cannot. You can. She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. You can do this, Sam. We can do this. They survived a blizzard. They survived losing their mother. They are going to survive this. Something in her voice steadied him. He nodded, jaw tightening, and lifted Lily onto the bed beside her sister. The night became a blur of cool cloths and desperate prayers. Both girls burned with fever, tossing and mumbling, lost in nightmares that Clara could not pull them out of. The blanket, Lily whispered. She gave us her blanket. She was shaking so bad. Cold. Grace moaned. She is so cold. She is not wearing the blanket anymore. She gave it to us. Lily continued, her voice rising. She gave it to us, and now she is going to sleep like Mama and never wake up. Clara's hands froze on the cloth she was wringing. The girls were not just remembering. They were remembering details Clara herself had lost. She lay down next to us. Grace cried. She wrapped her arms around us, but she was shaking and shaking. Help is coming, Lily mumbled. That is what she said. Help is coming. Just hold on. But she stopped talking. Grace's eyes flew open, lucid for one terrible moment. She stopped talking and she was so still. And we tried to keep her warm, but we could not. We could not. And then the men came and she was gone. The memories hit Clara like a physical blow. The cold, the unbearable cold, giving up her blanket, then her coat, then finally her own body heat, lying in the snow with two small children pressed against her, singing until her voice gave out, feeling her own heart slow and her vision narrow to a single point of light, the certainty that she was going to die, and the strange peace that came with knowing these children would live. Oh, God. Clara pressed her hand to her mouth. I remember. I remember all of it. Clara, Sam's voice came from far away. I was dying. The words tumbled out. I was freezing to death, and I knew it. And I did not care because they were going to survive. I sang to them until I could not sing anymore. I promised help was coming, even though I was not sure. And then I just let go. You saved them. I almost died saving them. Clara looked at the two small girls on the bed, at their fever-flushed faces, at the lives she had traded her own for 2 years ago. And they remember. They remember every moment of it. That is why they dream about the snow. They are not just dreaming about their mother. They are dreaming about watching me die. Sam crossed to her in 2 strides and pulled her into his arms. You did not die. You are here. You came back. I do not know how. Clara was shaking now, 2 years of suppressed memory flooding through her. I do not know how I survived. I should have frozen. I should have, but you did not. Something kept you alive. Something brought you back. Sam pulled away enough to look into her eyes. Do not you see? You were supposed to be here, right now, with them, with me, Papa. Lily's weak voice interrupted them. They both turned. Lily's eyes were open, clearer than they had been in hours, fixed on Clara's face. You remember now, do you not? You remember the snow? Clara knelt beside the bed, taking Lily's small hand. I remember, sweetheart. I remember all of it. We prayed you would come back. Tears leaked from Lily's fever-bright eyes. Every night for 2 years we prayed and prayed. And then we saw you in the square, and we knew. We knew God answered our prayers. Lily, do not leave us again. The little girl's grip tightened. Please, promise you will not leave us again. Clara looked at Sam, at the question in his eyes, at the hope he was trying so hard not to show. Then she looked back at these 2 children who had been carrying the memory of her sacrifice for 2 years, who had prayed for her return, who had recognized her across a crowded square and fought to save her the way she had once fought to save them. I promise, Clara whispered. I'm not going anywhere. The fevers broke near dawn. Clara was dozing in the chair between the beds when she felt a small hand touch her face. She opened her eyes to find Grace watching her, cool-skinned and clear-eyed. Hi, Grace whispered. Hi yourself. Clara's voice cracked. How do you feel? Tired, thirsty. Grace glanced at her sleeping sister, then back at Clara. I had dreams, bad ones. But you were there. You sang the star song and everything got better. That is what the star song does. It makes everything better. Will you teach it to me? The whole thing? So I can sing it when I am scared? Clara felt tears threatening again. Of course, sweetheart. I will teach you everything I know. Sam appeared in the doorway, exhausted and unshaven but smiling. Storm has passed. Sun is coming up. Papa? Grace tried to sit up. Lily got sick too. Is she okay? She is fine. Both of you are fine. Sam crossed to the bed and kissed his daughter's forehead. Gave us quite a scare. Sorry. Do not be sorry. Just do not do it again. Grace giggled weakly. I will try. Lily stirred beside her, blinking awake. What happened? Why does my head hurt? You had a fever, baby. Sam smoothed her hair back. But it broke. You are going to be okay. The twins reached for each other automatically, small hands clasping, the bond between them visible and unbreakable. I dreamed about the snow, Lily said quietly, but this time the lady did not disappear. She stayed. Both girls looked at Clara. She stayed. Grace echoed. Clara could not speak. Her throat was too tight, her heart too full. Sam's hand found her shoulder, squeezing gently. Come on, girls need rest, and so do you. He led Clara downstairs, settled her on the sofa with a blanket, pressed a cup of coffee into her hands. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For being here, for staying, for singing them through the worst of it. He sat down beside her. I could not have done it alone. Yes, you could, maybe, but I did not have to. That is the point. Sam turned to face her. Clara, about what happened up there, what you remembered. Sam, I do not. Let me finish. He took her hands, his rough palms warm against her cold fingers. You gave up everything to save two children you had never met. You laid down in the snow, ready to die, so they could live. That is not something a bad person does. That is not something a murderer does. Whatever happened with your husband, whatever Thornton claims, I know who you really are. I saw it 2 years ago when you saved my daughters. And I see it now. You were not there 2 years ago, was I not? Sam's eyes held hers. I was searching for them that night. Part of the search party. We found them just after dawn. Buried in snow, but warm. Wrapped in a green blanket that did not belong to anyone. Singing a song none of us recognized. Clara's breath caught. The tracker found footprints leading away from them. Stumbling, confused, heading toward the road. He followed them for half a mile before the snow covered them completely. We never found who they belonged to. Sam's voice dropped. Until now, you were there, Clara whispered. I carried my daughters home that morning. Carried them past a woman's body in an overturned wagon. Their mother, though I did not know it then. Rebecca was already back at the ranch, getting ready to welcome them home. His jaw tightened. We did not know she had gone out. Did not know she had taken the girls. Did not know anything until the storm cleared and she was not there. Sam, the point is I was there, on the edge of it, and I have spent 2 years wondering who saved my girls, who was good enough, brave enough, to freeze to death for two strangers. He cupped her face in his hands. Now I know, and I am not letting you go. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. I am broken, Clara said. I am scared and damaged, and I do not know if I will ever be whole again. Then we will be broken together. Sam, I am not asking for anything. Not now, just stay. Stay and let us love you. Let us show you what family can be when it is not twisted and wrong. His thumb brushed her cheek, one day at a time, one moment at a time, however long it takes. Clara leaned into his touch, feeling something warm bloom in her chest, something she had thought she had lost forever. Hope. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Sam smiled, and it transformed his whole face. Okay. They sat together as the sun rose higher, as the storm clouds retreated and the world turned white and gold and new. Upstairs, the twins slept peacefully for the first time in days. Outside, the horses nickered softly in their stalls. For one perfect moment, everything was still. Then hoofbeats, multiple horses approaching fast. Sam was on his feet before Clara could react. He crossed to the window and she watched his face go hard. What is it? Riders, 6 of them. His hand dropped to his gun. Thornton is in front. Clara's blood went cold. Sam, stay here. Keep the girls quiet. No matter what happens, stay in this house. I am not going to hide while you... You are not hiding. You are protecting them. He gestured toward the stairs. If something happens to me, get them out through the back. There is a horse saddled in the barn. Always keep one ready. Take them to my sister in Denver. She will know what to do. Sam, please. He kissed her, hard and fast and desperate. One day at a time, remember? He pulled back, his gray eyes blazing. Just make sure we get that day. Then he was gone, out the door and into the cold morning to face whatever was coming. Clara ran to the window and watched him walk toward the approaching riders. 6 men, 6 guns, and Sam standing alone. Nothing but his own weapon and his stubborn courage between them and the house. Clara, she spun. Grace and Lily stood at the bottom of the stairs, pale and trembling, clutching each other's hands. The bad man is back, Lily whispered. I heard the horses. Clara gathered them close. Listen to me. We are going to stay very quiet. Your papa is handling it. What if he cannot? Grace's voice shook. What if the bad man hurts him? Clara looked out the window at Sam's lone figure, facing down 6 riders, at the man who had cut her down from a post and given her a home, who had held her while she cried and promised to show her that kindness still existed. Then we run, Clara said quietly, and we do not look back. Outside, Thornton pulled his horse to a stop 10 feet from Sam. Hartwell, beautiful morning, is it not? What do you want, Thornton? Same thing I wanted a week ago, the woman. The marshal smiled that cold smile. I have given you time to come to your senses, time to realize what you are harboring under your roof. Now I am here to collect what is mine. She is not yours. No, I saved her life, Hartwell, pulled her off her husband's body before she could do any more damage. That makes her my responsibility. Funny kind of responsibility. The kind that involves beating her senseless and locking her in a cell. Thornton's smile flickered. She has told you stories. I am not surprised. Woman like that, she is good at telling stories. Probably told you she is innocent. Told you I am the villain. Told you anything that might turn you against me. She told me the truth. And how would you know the truth from lies? Thornton leaned forward in his saddle. You have known her 3 weeks. I have known her 6 months. Who do you think understands what she really is? I think I understand exactly what you are. The marshal's expression hardened. Last chance, Hartwell. Give her up. Let me take her back to face justice. And I will forget this little act of rebellion. And if I do not, Thornton's hand moved toward his gun, then I will have to remove you as an obstacle for the safety of the community. You understand? Sam's voice carried clear and cold across the snow. You reach for that weapon, Thornton. You better pray you are faster than me. I have got 6 men, and I have got 2 daughters in that house who are about to watch their father face down a corrupt marshal and his hired guns. Sam smiled grimly. What kind of lesson do you think I want to teach them? That a man backs down when the odds are against him? Or that a man stands up for what is right, no matter the cost? Thornton's jaw tightened. You are a fool, maybe, but I am a fool with a clear conscience. For a long moment, nobody moved. Clara watched from the window, barely breathing, her arms tight around the twins. Then one of the riders shifted, a young man, barely out of boyhood, with a deputy's star on his chest. Marshal, he said quietly, this is not right. Shut up, Jennings. No, sir. I have followed you for 2 years, done things I am not proud of, but I am not going to shoot a man in front of his children for standing up to you. Jennings pulled his horse back. I am done. You are done when I say you are done. Reckon I am saying it myself. The young deputy turned his horse towards Sam. Hartwell, I apologize for my part in this. If you need a witness to the marshal's conduct, I will testify. Another rider pulled back, then another. Thornton's face went purple with rage. You cowards, you spineless, worthless. It is over, Thornton. Sam's voice was quiet. Half your men just quit. The others are looking at them wondering if they should too. You going to start a war you cannot win? The marshal sat frozen, fury and calculation warring on his face. Finally, he wheeled his horse around. This is not over, Hartwell, not by a long shot. That woman is mine, and I will see her hang if it is the last thing I do. Then it will be the last thing you do. Thornton spurred his horse and rode hard toward town, the 3 remaining loyal deputies struggling to keep up. Jennings lingered, his young face troubled. He will not stop, he told Sam. You know that, right? He is obsessed, been talking about that woman for months, planning ways to get her back. Then we will be ready. You should get help. A lawyer, maybe. Someone who can build a case against him before he builds one against you. You know any lawyers willing to go up against the territorial marshal? Jennings hesitated. There is a man in Denver. Reporter for the Chronicle. Been investigating corruption in the territories. Word is he is looking into Thornton specifically. He glanced toward the house. Might be worth reaching out. What is his name? Sullivan, Declan Sullivan. Clara's knees buckled. She grabbed the windowsill to keep from falling. Clara. Grace tugged at her dress. Clara, what is wrong? Declan. Her brother here, investigating Thornton. Oh God, oh God. The door opened and Sam walked in, alive and whole and searching for her with worried eyes. Clara, what happened? You look like you have seen a ghost, the reporter. Clara gasped. Declan Sullivan. He is my brother. Sam stared at Clara like she had spoken in tongues. Your brother? Declan Sullivan, the reporter? Clara's voice shook. He is my brother. We have not spoken in 5 years. The one you fought with before you married Brennan? He tried to warn me about Edward, told me he saw something wrong underneath. I did not listen. Clara pressed her hand to her chest. I told him if he could not be happy for me, I did not want him around. And he left. And I have spent 5 years thinking he forgot about me. Forgot I existed. Clara laughed, high and brittle. But he has been investigating Thornton, looking for evidence. He never stopped caring. He just found another way to help. Sam crossed to her and gripped her shoulders. Clara, this is good news. This is the best news. You do not understand. If Declan has been investigating Thornton, if he has got evidence, then we use it. We reach out. We tell him where you are. And what if Thornton finds out? What if he goes after Declan? Then we warn him. We work together. Sam's eyes burned into hers. Clara, you have been fighting alone for years. You do not have to anymore. Let your brother help. The twins watched from the stairs, their pale faces still showing traces of fever, but their eyes sharp and alert. The reporter man is your brother? Lily asked. Like a real brother? A real brother. We should meet him. Grace descended the stairs carefully. If he is family, we should meet him. Sweetheart, it is complicated. No, it is not. Lily followed her sister. Family means you do not give up on each other. That is what Mama always said. Even when you fight, even when you are mad, family sticks together. Clara looked at these two small girls who had survived losing their mother, who had carried the memory of a stranger's sacrifice for 2 years, who had somehow taught her more about love and loyalty than she had learned in a lifetime. You are right, she said softly. You are absolutely right. Sam sent word to Denver that afternoon, a writer he trusted carrying a letter Clara had agonized over for an hour. The words kept coming out wrong, too formal, too apologetic, not apologetic enough. Finally, Sam had taken the pen from her trembling hand. Just tell him where you are. Tell him you need him. The rest can wait until he gets here. The waiting was torture. 3 days passed. The twins recovered fully, bouncing back with the resilience of children. Clara cooked and cleaned and helped with the horses, trying to keep her mind occupied, trying not to think about Declan reading her letter, or throwing it away unread, or already being dead because Thornton had gotten to him first. On the 4th day, a wagon appeared on the road to the ranch. Someone is coming. Sam reached for his rifle. Is it the bad man? Grace pressed against Clara's side. I do not. Clara squinted at the approaching figure, at the dark hair going gray at the temples, at the familiar set of shoulders she had known since childhood. Declan, the name came out broken. She was running before she knew she had moved, down the porch steps, across the frozen ground, her skirts tangling around her legs. The wagon stopped and a man jumped down. And then Clara was in her brother's arms, sobbing against his shoulder like she was 12 years old again. Clara, Declan's voice cracked. Good God, Clara, I thought you were dead when I heard about Edward, when I could not find you. I am sorry. Clara could not stop saying it. I am so sorry. You were right about him. You were right about everything. I should have listened. Shh. Declan pulled back, his hands framing her face, his eyes the same green-gray as hers. wet with tears. None of that matters now. You are alive. You are here. I said such terrible things, and I left when you needed me most. We both made mistakes. Declan brushed her tears away with his thumbs. But I never stopped looking for you. Never stopped caring. The moment I heard your name connected to Thornton, I started digging. Jennings said you have been investigating him. The man is dirty, Clara. Dirty in ways that go beyond what he did to you. Declan's jaw tightened. He has been running a protection racket across 3 territories, framing people who will not pay, taking women who catch his eye and making them disappear. Making them disappear? You are not the first. There have been others, at least 3 that I can confirm. Declan's voice dropped. You are the first one who survived long enough to escape. Clara felt cold spread through her chest. What happened to them? 2 are in unmarked graves outside Silver Creek. The third, Declan hesitated. The third is in an asylum in Kansas City. Thornton had her committed, claimed she had gone mad with guilt after killing her husband. Just like me. Exactly like you. Same story, same accusations, same evidence that does not hold up if you look at it closely. Sam had approached quietly, the twins flanking him. You got proof of all this? Declan turned, assessing Sam with sharp eyes. You must be Hartwell, the man who pulled my sister off that post. And you must be the brother who let her marry a man who beat her half to death, Sam. Clara stepped between them, but Declan just nodded slowly. Fair point. I carry that every day. But I am here now, and I have got something that might help. He reached into his coat and pulled out a leather satchel. Inside, Clara could see papers, dozens of them, and something that looked like a small wooden box. What is that? Grace asked, curiosity overwhelming her fear. Evidence. Declan knelt down to the little girl's level. You must be one of the twins my sister wrote about. Grace or Lily? Grace. She is Lily. Grace pointed at her sister. Are you really Clara's brother? I am. She thought you forgot about her. Declan's face twisted. Never. Not for 1 second. Good. Grace nodded seriously, because family does not forget, even when they are far away. No, Declan agreed softly. They do not. Inside the house, Declan spread his evidence across the kitchen table. Witness statements, financial records, newspaper clippings, and at the center of it all, the wooden box. What is that? Clara asked. A phonograph cylinder. Thomas Edison's invention. Declan opened the box to reveal a small wax cylinder cradled in velvet. Edward made a recording 3 days before he died. The air left Clara's lungs. What? I found it hidden in your house. Thornton's men missed it when they searched the place. Declan's voice was gentle. Edward was scared, Clara. He knew Thornton was coming for him. Hire him. He made this recording as insurance. Play it. Sam's voice was rough. Whatever is on there, she needs to hear it. Declan pulled a small phonograph from his satchel and fitted the cylinder carefully onto the mechanism. The twins pressed close to Clara as he turned the crank. Static. Then Edward's voice, thin and scratchy but unmistakable, filled the kitchen. My name is Edward Brennan. I am recording this on December 3rd, 1878. If you are hearing this, I am probably dead, and you need to know the truth. Clara's hand flew to her mouth. She had hated Edward, hated him for every bruise, every broken bone, every night of terror. But hearing his voice again, hearing the fear in it, made her throat close. Marshall Wade Thornton has been blackmailing me for 2 years. He knows things about my business, things that could send me to prison. He has been bleeding me dry, but that is not the worst of it. Edward's voice cracked on the recording. He wants my wife. He has been watching Clara since we came to Silver Creek, following her, making comments when he thinks I cannot hear. Last week he told me flat out, either I hand her over or he will kill me and take her anyway. Clara felt Sam's arm wrap around her shoulders. I told him no, told him I would die before I let him touch her. And he smiled, God, that smile, and said that could be arranged. Silence. Then Edward spoke again. Quieter. I know I have not been a good husband. I know I have hurt Clara. The drinking, the anger. I am not making excuses. But I never wanted this for her. I never wanted her handed over to a monster worse than me. Tears streamed down Clara's face. If I am dead, it is because Thornton killed me. Clara did not do it. She could not. For all my faults, she stuck by me when anyone else would have run. She tried to help me, tried to make me stop drinking, tried to save our marriage. Edward's voice broke completely. Do not let him hurt her. Please, whatever happens to me, do not let him hurt my Clara. She deserves better than both of us. The recording ended with a click. Nobody spoke. Clara stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, processing what she had just heard. Edward had known. He had known Thornton was coming for him. He had known she would be blamed, and he had tried in his own broken, inadequate way to protect her. I hated him, she whispered. For so long, I hated him so much. You had every right to. Declan's voice was gentle. But he did not deserve to die. Not like that. Not murdered by a man who wanted his wife like property. No, he did not. Clara turned to Sam, her eyes searching his face. Does this change things? Knowing what Edward was? What he did to me? Does it change how I feel about you? Sam cupped her face in his hands. No. You survived him. You survived Thornton. You are the strongest person I have ever met. Nothing on that recording changes that. But I stayed for 4 years. I stayed with a man who hurt me because you did not know how to leave, because the world does not make it easy for women to escape, because you were young and alone and scared. Sam's thumbs brushed her tears away. None of that is your fault. None of it. Papa is right. Lily tugged at Clara's skirt. You are brave. The bravest person ever. Even braver than Mama? Grace asked. Different brave. Lily considered this seriously. Mama was brave about dying. Clara is brave about living. Clara dropped to her knees and pulled both girls into her arms, crying harder now, but not from grief, from relief, from the overwhelming sensation of being seen, being believed, being loved, despite everything. Declan cleared his throat. We need to move fast. Thornton knows I have been investigating him. He has got men watching the roads in and out of Denver. If he finds out I am here, then we take the fight to him. Sam straightened. Before he can plan, before he can prepare. How? Town meeting tonight. Sam's jaw set, same way he tried to condemn Clara. We use his own methods against him. He will never agree to that. He will not have a choice. The whole town saw what happened in that square. They have been whispering about it for weeks. All we have to do is give them a reason to listen. Clara stood slowly. You want me to stand up in front of everyone? The same people who called me a murderer? Who threw dirt at me? Who watched Thornton tie me to a post and did nothing? I want you to tell them the truth. All of it, including the parts that hurt. And if they do not believe me, then we play the recording. Sam's eyes met hers and let Edward speak for himself. The ride into Silver Creek felt like riding to her own execution. Clara sat between Sam and Declan on the wagon seat, the twins bundled in blankets behind them. The winter sun was setting, painting the snow in shades of orange and red. By the time they reached town, darkness had fallen completely. Word traveled fast in Silver Creek. By the time they pulled up outside the town hall, a crowd had already gathered. Clara saw faces she recognized. The baker's wife, the blacksmith, old Martin from the feed store, all of them watching with curiosity and suspicion. Hartwell. The shout came from inside the hall. What is the meaning of this? Thornton emerged through the doors, his deputies flanking him. But Clara noticed something different. Fewer men than before, and Jennings stood apart from the others, his young face troubled. Town meeting, Marshal. Sam jumped down from the wagon and helped Clara to the ground. You called 3 weeks ago to condemn this woman. Seems only fair she gets a chance to respond. The matter has been settled. She is your responsibility now. The matter is not settled. You accused her of murder without a trial, without evidence, without letting her speak in her own defense. Sam's voice carried across the square. These people deserve to hear the truth. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Clara felt their eyes on her, judging, assessing, waiting to see what she would do. The truth is she killed her husband. Thornton's voice dripped contempt. Beat his head in while he slept. I found her standing over the body with blood on her hands. Then why did you not arrest her that night? Declan stepped forward. Why did you wait 2 days? Why did you visit her house 3 times before you finally took her in? Who the hell are you? Declan Sullivan. Denver Chronicle. Declan's voice was calm, measured, deadly. I have been investigating you for 6 months, Marshall. Would you like to hear what I found? The crowd pressed closer. Clara could feel the shift in the air, curiosity overcoming fear, the hunger for scandal outweighing loyalty to authority. This man has accused me of lies before. Thornton addressed the crowd directly. He is the murderess's brother. Of course, he would say anything to, I have witness statements. Declan cut him off. From 3 women who say you did to them exactly what you tried to do to Clara. 2 of them are dead now. The third is in an asylum. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I have financial records showing you have been extorting money from businessmen across 3 territories, framing those who will not pay, destroying anyone who stands against you. This is outrageous. And I have this. Declan held up the wax cylinder, a recording made by Edward Brennan 3 days before he died. His own words, his own voice, telling exactly who killed him and why. Thornton's face went white, then red, then purple with rage. That is a fake, a fabrication. You cannot possibly. Then you will not mind if we play it right here, right now, in front of everyone. The crowd erupted. People shouted questions, demands, accusations. Clara saw the baker's wife push toward the front, her face fierce with sudden understanding. I knew it, she called out. I knew something was not right. The way you looked at her, Marshall. The way you were always hanging around her house before Edward died. She is lying. Play the recording. Someone shouted, let us hear it. Let the dead man speak. Declan set up the phonograph on the town hall steps. The crowd pressed so close Clara could barely breathe. Sam kept one arm around her waist, the other hand resting on his gun. The cylinder began to turn. Edward's voice filled the square, thin and ghostly, but unmistakable. Clara watched the crowd's faces change as they listened. Shock, then horror, then fury. He wants my wife. He has been watching Clara since we came to Silver Creek. I told him no, told him I would die before I let him touch her. If I am dead, it is because Thornton killed me. Clara did not do it. She could not. The recording ended. Silence fell over the square like a shroud. Then Helen, the baker's wife, stepped forward. Her voice shook with rage. You murdered that man. You murdered him and blamed his wife. You let us call her a monster when you were the monster all along. This is absurd. Thornton started. I saw you, an old man, push through the crowd. The night Brennan died, I saw you riding away from their house. Thought nothing of it at the time. Thought you were just making rounds. Me too. Another voice. Saw him through my window, moving fast, like he was running from something. He came to my wife, a young farmer, his face pale. Last summer, said he would make trouble for us if she did not do what he wanted. We left town for 3 months. I thought I was imagining things. I thought you thought what he wanted you to think. Clara's voice cut through the noise. Somehow she had found the strength to speak. That is what he does. He makes you doubt yourself, makes you think you are crazy, makes you feel alone, even when you are surrounded by people. She stepped forward and the crowd parted before her. I spent 4 years with a man who hurt me. I am not proud of that. I am not proud that I stayed, that I made excuses, that I let him break me down piece by piece. Clara's voice grew stronger. But I did not kill him. I was ready to die that night, his hands around my throat, the life draining out of me. And then this man shot him in the back, not to save me, to take me, because he decided I was his property and Edward was just an obstacle. She turned to face Thornton directly. You told me I owed you, said saving my life made us connected, and when I refused to be grateful the way you wanted, you destroyed me, my reputation, my freedom, my will to live. Clara felt tears streaming down her face, but she did not stop. You would have killed me eventually. The same way you killed those other women. The same way you would have killed anyone who stood in your way. Thornton's hand dropped to his gun. I would not. Sam's voice was cold as steel. You draw that weapon, you will not live long enough to fire it. You cannot threaten me. I am the law here. You are not the law. Jennings stepped forward, his deputy badge catching the torchlight. Not anymore. He unpinned the star from his chest and let it fall to the ground. I am done being part of this. Done looking the other way. Done watching you hurt people and calling it justice. One by one, Thornton's remaining deputies followed suit. Badges dropped into the dirt until Thornton stood alone, surrounded by a town that had finally stopped being afraid. This is not over. Thornton's voice shook with fury. I have friends, powerful friends. You think a recording and some witnesses will stop me? I will destroy every single one of you. No. Clara stepped closer to him, close enough to see the fear beneath his rage. You will not, because I am not afraid of you anymore, and a man who cannot make people afraid has nothing. Thornton stared at her for a long moment. Then his face twisted into something ugly, something desperate. And his hand flew toward his gun. The shot echoed across the square. But it was not Thornton's gun that fired. The marshal crumpled to the ground, clutching his shoulder, and Clara turned to see Jennings standing with his pistol raised, smoke curling from the barrel. Could not let him hurt anyone else. The young man said quietly, been wanting to do that for a long time. The crowd surged forward. Men grabbed Thornton and bound his hands, dragged him toward the jail that had held Clara for 6 months. Women surrounded Clara, touching her hands, apologizing, crying. We should have known. Helen sobbed. We should have listened. We should have. You are listening now. Clara gripped the other woman's hands. That is what matters. Sam found her in the chaos, pulled her against his chest, held her while she shook with relief and exhaustion and the overwhelming sensation of finally being believed. It is over, he murmured into her hair. It is finally over. The guilty verdict came 3 hours after the trial began. Clara stood outside the courthouse when they led Thornton away in chains. He caught her eye as he passed, and she saw the hatred there, the impotent rage of a man who had finally met something he could not destroy. This is not over, he hissed. I will find a way out. I will come for you. Clara stepped forward until she was close enough to see the fear underneath his bravado. No, she said quietly, you will not, because I am not afraid of you anymore. And a man who cannot make people afraid has nothing. She turned her back on him and walked to where her family was waiting. Sam wrapped his arm around her shoulders. The twins grabbed her hands. Declan stood nearby, pride radiating from every line of his body. It is done, Sam said. Really done. Yes, Clara breathed in the spring air, sweet with promise. It is. The wedding happened 3 weeks later, on a Sunday afternoon when the sky was so blue it hurt to look at. Clara wore a dress she had sewn herself, simple ivory cotton with lace at the collar. The twins wore matching blue dresses and carried wildflowers they had picked from the ranch's small greenhouse. Declan walked Clara down the makeshift aisle in Sam's parlor, his eyes wet but his voice steady. Ma would be proud, he whispered as he placed her hand in Sam's. Pa, too, if he were sober enough to remember what pride felt like. Declan, I'm just saying, he kissed her forehead. You deserve this, all of it. Do not let anyone tell you different. The circuit preacher spoke words Clara barely heard. She was too focused on Sam's face. On the way, he looked at her like she was a miracle he had stumbled across and could not quite believe was real. I promise to choose you every day, Sam said when it came time for vows. To listen when you speak, to trust you to know your own mind, to never try to control or diminish you, to be your partner, not your keeper. Clara felt tears sliding down her cheeks. She squeezed Sam's hands and spoke her own vows. I promise to let myself be loved, to stop waiting for disaster and start trusting in good things. I promise to be honest with you even when it is hard, even when I am scared. I promise to love your daughters like they are my own, because in every way that matters, they are. And I promise, Lily interrupted loudly, to never put frogs in Clara's bed again. Laughter rippled through the small gathering. Clara caught Sam's eye and saw him struggling not to grin. When did you put frogs in her bed? Last Tuesday. She screamed really loud. It was funny. Lily Hartwell, we are going to have a conversation about this later. Does this mean I can still put frogs in Grace's bed? No more frog discussions during the wedding. Declan interjected, his face red from suppressed laughter. Please. The preacher, clearly baffled by the whole situation, rushed through the final pronouncements. I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride. Sam kissed her softly, reverently, while the twins cheered and Declan wiped his eyes. Hello, Mrs. Hartwell, Sam murmured against her lips. Hello, Mr. Hartwell. No regrets? Clara looked around the parlor at the small group of people who had gathered to witness this moment. Helen from the bakery, Martin from the feed store, Jennings, the young deputy who had finally found his courage, and the twins bouncing with excitement, already calling her mama without hesitation. Not one, Clara said. Not ever. A year later, Clara held her son for the first time. He was small and red and furious at being evicted from his comfortable home. But when Clara pressed him to her chest, when he heard her heartbeat and felt her warmth, he quieted. Hello, she whispered. Hello, little one. He is beautiful. Sam's voice was thick with tears. What should we call him? Clara looked at her brother, who had been allowed in after the worst was over, at Sam, who had given her everything she had never dared to hope for, at the two small girls now crowded in the doorway, their faces alight with wonder. Rowan, she said, Rowan Thomas Hartwell. Sam's eyebrows rose. Thomas? Not after Edward, after what he said in the recording, what he tried to do at the end. Clara stroked her son's tiny cheek. He was wrong about a lot of things, but he was right about one thing. I deserve better than him. I deserve this. The twins crowded onto the bed, cooing over their new brother. Rowan Thomas Hartwell, they repeated in unison. Our brother. Word came a week later that Thornton had died in prison. Heart attack. Clara stood at the window holding Rowan when Sam told her. How do you feel? He asked. Clara considered the question. She had expected to feel triumph, or relief, or maybe nothing at all. Instead, she felt free. Really, truly, free. Years passed, the seasons turned. Clara watched her children grow. Rowan became a boy full of curiosity and mischief. The twins blossomed into young women, carrying forward the lessons their mothers, both of them, had taught. One evening when Rowan was 10 and the twins were 16, Clara found herself standing in the town square again. A plaque had been erected where the posts once stood, a memorial to the women Thornton had hurt, a promise that Silver Creek would never let such things happen again. Mom. Grace appeared at her elbow, grown tall and beautiful. What are you thinking about? Clara touched the plaque, tracing the names engraved there. I am thinking about how strange life is, how the worst moments can lead to the best ones, how being broken can be the beginning of becoming whole. Do you regret any of it? The pain? Yes, of course. Clara turned to face her daughter. Her daughter. No blood between them, but a bond stronger than blood. But the path that brought me here, to your father, to you and Lily and Rowan, never. I would walk through that fire again if it meant ending up in this life. Even the scary parts. Especially the scary parts. Because the scary parts taught me what I was made of. They taught me that I am stronger than I ever knew. That love is worth fighting for. That family is not about where you come from. It is about where you choose to belong. Grace hugged her tightly. I am glad you chose us. Sweetheart, Clara held her daughter close. You chose me first. You and your sister. In that town square, Mal, you looked at a woman everyone else had given up on and said, that is her. You saw something worth saving when nobody else could. We just knew. Grace said simply, we always knew. That night, Clara sat between her daughters at the dinner table, watching Sam try to convince Rowan that vegetables were not in fact poison, watching Lily argue about something she had read in the newspaper, watching Grace roll her eyes at her siblings with theatrical exasperation. Ordinary moments, precious moments, the kind of moments Clara had once believed she would never have. Sam caught her eye across the table and smiled. That same smile he had given her the day she agreed to marry him, full of love and wonder and gratitude. What? He asked. Nothing. Clara smiled back. Everything. After dinner, when the children had scattered to their various activities, Sam found Clara on the porch, wrapped in a blanket against the evening chill. You are doing that thing again, he said, settling beside her. What thing? Looking at everything like you are afraid it will disappear. Clara laughed softly. Old habits. How long until they are gone completely? Maybe never. Maybe that is okay. She leaned against his shoulder. Maybe remembering how close I came to losing everything makes me appreciate it more. You did not lose it. You fought for it. You earned it. We earned it together. Sam kissed the top of her head. Together. They sat in comfortable silence as the stars came out, the same stars Clara had sung about on a frozen night years ago, the same stars her children would see, and their children after them. Clara Brennan had been called a murderer. She had been beaten, imprisoned, and condemned. She had stood in a frozen square with a rope around her wrists and nothing but rage to keep her standing. But two small girls had looked at her and seen the truth. A man had listened to his daughters and chosen to believe. And together they had built something Thornton could never destroy. Something stronger than fear, deeper than pain, more powerful than all the cruelty the world could throw at them. They had built a home. Clara closed her eyes and listened to the sounds of her family inside the house. Rowan arguing about bedtime, the twins laughing at something, Sam's steady heartbeat beside her. Home, she thought. After everything, after all of it. Finally, irrevocably, completely, home.